Hi, everyone. Just give people a couple minutes to enter the room and then we'll get started. Okay, I'm going to get started because we have a lot of really interesting content to get through. So I want to ensure we have enough time. Welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I'm Lindsay Goldman, the CEO of Grantmakers in Aging. We are a community of practice of funders mobilizing money and ideas to strengthen policies, programs, and resources for all of us as we age. We create opportunities for funders to connect, collaborate, and co-fund. We help funders who are already investing in aging to fund more strategically, and we help funders who are not funding in aging to identify the intersections of aging and every other funding priority. Today's program is the fourth in partnership with the Helen Daniels Bader Alzheimer's and Healthy Aging Speaker Series entitled Innovation and Hope, Building Momentum to Address Alzheimer's Disease and Related Dementias. We've been gathering the nation's leading thinkers, funders, and implementers, and now we're going global to provide a comprehensive look at the community, program, policy, and scientific responses to the global public health challenge that is Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. So thank you to Bader Philanthropies for supporting these important conversations. In the chat, you will see a link to all of the previous webinars that we've done on this topic. Today, we are highlighting the Dementia Village model, which is a groundbreaking model of care pioneered by Hogeveg in the Netherlands that provides a holistic and supportive environment tailored specifically to individuals living with dementia. These are cities within a city that are radical alternatives to the traditional memory care units within long-term care facilities with which we're all very familiar. So we have a great panel with us today to discuss the model and the feasibility of establishing similar models here in the United States. With us, we have Helen Ramon, who is Senior Grants Director of Bader Philanthropies. She's also a former GIA board member. We have Eloy Van Haal, the Senior Managing Advisor and founder of the Hogeveg and Be Advice. We have Mary Pitch, who is co-founder and vice president of Dementia Innovations. And we have Isaac Longobardi, the director of the Moving Forward Nursing Home Quality Coalition with Leading Age, another GIA member. Thank you all for being here with us. We will have time for questions toward the end of the webinar, so please type your questions in the question box in the Zoom platform. We also will be recording today's session and we will be sharing the slides following the webinar. I'm now going to turn it over to Helen Ramon with Bader Philanthropies to give us some welcoming remarks.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Lizzie, and thank you all, everybody, for participating in this webinar today. And thanks for taking the time to tune in. Bader Philanthropy is really happy to partner with Grantmakers in Aging to host this webinar. And as Lindsay mentioned, this is part of the Helen Daniels Bader Alzheimer's and Healthy Aging Speaker Series. We host a number of in-person and virtual speaker series each year, as our grantees have told us loud and clear that they want to learn as much as they can on a variety of topics. So we have been doing this in the rural and urban areas of Wisconsin, where we're located, throughout the country, and also in Israel, where we fund Alzheimer's programs to assist in the education and learning process for our grantees and other interested parties. Bader Philanthropy invests in programs and services to improve the well-being of people with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias to provide assistance to caregivers. We are a private family foundation located in Milwaukee. We fund in 8 countries. Since our inception in 1992, Alzheimer's and Aging has been the flagship program due to our founder, Helen Bader. Helen went back to school in her mid-50s and obtained a Master of Social Work degree upon graduation. And this was in the early 1980s. And she went to work in a long-term care facility. And she noticed that little to no programming occurred for those people with cognitive impairment. They basically went to the facility to obtain medical support and basically pass away. Helen's passion was music and dance, so she started several programs and saw a really noticeable difference in the quality of life of the residents. Many of these are the same programs that we are providing today to individuals in their homes, in assisted living facilities, and in also long-term care facilities, wherever they decide to age in place. Our partners are committed to helping individuals with cognitive impairment remain safe in order to live a comfortable and fruitful life. One of our strategies is services and support for Alzheimer's and other dementia, which rises to the top of our priority areas each time we review a grant request. To date, we have invested almost $70 million in Alzheimer's programs and have granted over 1,800 awards in the Alzheimer's category. Another goal for us is to be creative and take a chance on new and innovative projects. When we were approached by Dementia Innovations on a project overseas that had good success, we provided them with a discretionary grant so that they could go and see firsthand how and why the program worked so well and why it was so successful. So you will hear from Dementia Innovations today on what they're doing and how they plan to implement this in a fairly rural area of Wisconsin. We attempt to offer a variety of strategies for our grantees, and we are currently reviewing a program-related investment, otherwise known as a PRI, to assist with the financing of this project so that it can come to fruition. I am sure you'll find the presentations from the presenters interesting and something that you may be willing to explore in the future. Again, thank you for taking a portion of your day and to listen and learn on this very important and very informative and groundbreaking project.
Thank you so much, Helen. We really appreciate your partnership. And now I'd like to turn over the program to Eloy Van Hal.
Good morning, everybody. I'm honored to be here to talk a little bit. I only have 10 minutes, but maybe we can extend with a lot of questions and clear a little bit more. I will talk about the Hoogewijk. It's an integral care concept. It's about a lot. And that's why 10 minutes is not enough. Not a lot. It's for people living with advanced dementia. And I will also mention our Be Advised paradigm, because the Hoogewijk exists already for quite some years. We learned a lot. We have followers in the world. So what can we learn from this all together? And that's one of the outcomes is our Be Advised paradigm. Next slide, please, Alice. First, I have put some pictures together to give you an impression of the Hoogewijk. And mind you, the Hoogewijk does not provide assisted living, not even memory care. You can compare the care and support that's provided in this neighborhood with skilled nursing. So people that live, please, first slide. Yeah, people that live in this neighborhood need a lot of care and support. But we started this whole story with looking at what people really want, and people want a normal life, and people with dementia need a normal life. And a normal life, living according to your lifestyle, is very helpful for everybody and also for people with dementia. So an institution causes a lot of stress and agitation. So we need a neighborhood, we need normal houses, houses where 6, 7 people live together, where you form a household, where you dine together, family-style dining, where you live in a house that is decorated and according to your preferred lifestyle, your norms, your values. You live together with like-minded people. In a house you can leave. And that sounds really normal, but not in an institutional setting, not in skilled nursing. People are locked in. Here you can leave, you can go outside, you can walk into the neighborhood. Now we are framed as Dementia Village, but you can walk in the neighborhood where you can socialize, where you can meet other people, where you can meet the visitors. We be advised, welcome. You can just stroll around. You can go to the restaurant if you want to go for a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or lunch. But of course, most people eat at home in the Netherlands, so you form a sort of a household. And at the same time, you're supported by professional, highly professional care workers, but there's also a whole medical team on site because the Hoogewijk is offering highly complex care in a very normal living environment, neighborhood known as Dementia Village. So in this village, we also need the amenities you have in a normal neighborhood, like a supermarket. So you can go out, leave your house together with the care worker most of the time and get the groceries for the dinner you maybe want to be involved in the preparation. So in every house, 27 houses, they have 27 kitchens. Each house has a kitchen where they cook their own meals. Care workers cook and residents can participate. So it's not a surprise what's on your dish. So a neighborhood with different outdoor spaces, squares, streets, and a lot of houses, a little bit like a normal Dutch neighborhood where you're supported, where you live with advanced dementia, and also other comorbidities often for average. So it's about living for people with advanced dementia in their own lifestyle. Next slide, please, Alice. So our guiding principles, when we started a long time ago, where we need to deinstitutionalize, we need to transform, and we need to normalize. We need to offer residents a normal daily life with good professional support and care. Next slide, please. So we changed our model and our thinking from a medical clinical model where we talk about patients, where we talk about dementia, your disease all the time, to a model where we look at you as an individual, where we look at you as the abilities you still have. So a more social model, a holistic model. And in this picture, you see a resident cutting the beans, helping with the meal preparation with a knife. And that knife is a nice example. It's very important that people can handle a knife or still have a knife, so they are involved in the meal preparation. If I say it's too risky to have a knife in a care facility and I take out the knife, I cannot help with the meal preparation. I don't have this conversation. I don't know what's cooked every day. So I'm only sitting and waiting. So normalizing is the key principle. And I can assure you that most people with dementia behave like normal people. So that knife is not that dangerous. People with dementia will not stab everybody. So we must get rid of the risk-averse mentality we have in our countries, in the Netherlands, but also in the US. Next slide, please. So what we do, we focus on quality of life. And this is a picture that shows you how you can influence the quality by bringing back normal daily life. We see that in the Hoogewijk, but also in the new villages we see in Norway and in France and in Canada, that people stay for a much longer period in a better physical, mental, social, and spiritual condition. And you see, if you follow the green line, that people pass away very quickly. That has to do with a lot, with the model, but also with the way we look at care and support in the last phase of your life. So we only want to support quality, and we are not here to extend your life no matter what. So you must be very careful and discuss what kind of treatments are still beneficial, add to your quality of life, and not extending your life. And this is also a very important element of the Hoogweg concept and the thinking in the Netherlands in general. So it's not only about bricks and mortar, it's about how you look at healthcare in general as well. Next slide, please. So we promote healthy aging. We create a neighborhood where people are nudged to stay active in little things by helping with stirring in a pan, cooking a meal in your house, where we promote that people go on a walk in the neighborhood and even outside the neighborhood, where we also do some therapy, but we try to transform the therapy in normal daily life activities. It's much better to help to do the dishes in the kitchen than to go to the physiotherapist to do your exercise once a week and sit on your butt the rest of the week. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of proof nowadays that what we do is not just common sense. So we started with common sense, but for example, and this is just an example, small group living is proven. So we have a lot of experience over more than 20 years with the Hoogweg, but also other international early adopters. Next slide, please. Alice, next slide, please. So we have a lot of practice. There's a lot of evidence nowadays on all the elements of the whole model. So on quality of life, fresh air, outdoor space, dining together at a table with only 6, you eat better, and so on and so on. So we dare to speak about the method. Our Be Advised paradigm. So if you want to innovate in care and support for people and for people with dementia, you should consider our 7 pillars. Next slide, please. So next slide. Yes. So you should consider the favorable surrounding. You should consider lifestyle, health, but also the pleasures of life. You should consider how you support people, the formal and informal network. You have to change the way you organize and support people, so the pillar organization. And you have to work on social inclusion and emancipation. And we always say you have to explore these 7 pillars that are the backbone also of the Hoogweg concept from the individual perspective, the home perspective, the living environment, and organization and processes. And so it's way too short to go in depth, but these 7 pillars are very critical to be successful and to provide a normal daily life for you and me and people living with advanced dementia. Next slide, please. So nowadays, and we talk about this model already for several years, we see the new initiatives popping up in Rome, in Australia, in France, and the first also in the US. And so we dare to talk about a global movement, a movement of change where we focus more on a holistic model, get rid of the institutional model and thinking, the medical model, and where we focus much more on quality of life for people living with dementia. So that's great. And so I would like to invite you to join this movement and work together to create better living places for people living with dementia. So next slide, please. Be advised, myself, but also my team members can be very helpful. And one of the great new examples is created by Mary Pitch with Livazu Village, and she will talk more about that. So thank you for now. Looking forward to all your questions.
Thank you, Eloy. Thank you, everyone, for being here this morning. I thought I would start a little bit. My name is Mary Pitch. I have been a social worker working with older adults for almost 30 years. So just thought I'd start by telling you a little bit about how Dementia Innovations started. So we started as a grassroots effort, a task force actually, that came together as a public-private partnership to look at how our community was responding to dementia crisis situations, realizing that our community wasn't doing such a great job in how we were responding to those situations. So through the task force, we were able to better align how we as a community were dealing with these situations. We were able to actually make some of the largest changes to the 911 system. Rather than having calls that were coming into the 911 center, rather than treating them as criminal law enforcement situations, we actually changed them to look at them through an EMS lens, knowing that that's really what was happening is more of a medical situation. We were able to provide our own curriculum to over 4,000 professionals, both locally and statewide. And while that task force work continues to be successful and important, we also recognize that it was still really a reactive Band-Aid type of approach. So next slide, please. Several of us decided to really change that and look rather than just at crisis, to look at a culture change in care. So the three of us co-founded Dementia Innovations. And really the point of doing that was to look at how do we prevent those crisis situations from happening. Rather than focusing on that side of things, how do we prevent those situations? And we decided that in order to do that, we needed to look at the beginning, and we needed to look at the environment that people with dementia were living in and what was kind of causing these situations to happen. So next slide, please. We created a dementia village, is what we are currently working on. The Dementia Village is specific to those with dementia being able to live in an environment similar to what Eloy was talking about, an environment that focuses on abilities rather than focuses on disabilities, that allows them to explore safely throughout the entire village, that allows for those with dementia to live with their spouses, which is something that we know doesn't often happen in traditional settings. The entire property, as you can see, this is just a conceptual site, so not all the details are not in this plan yet, but it is individually owned homes surrounding then a village center. The village center has an open to the public restaurant. It has a chapel. It has a theater. It will have a grocery store like Eloy was talking about. It has a spa and a gym. And then what I like to call kind of the hobby spaces, a club room for men, a sunroom for ladies. The entire village center is open to the public. And that's really important because what that does is by bringing in the general population, the general public into the village, what that does is reduces stigma. It allows the entire general population to kind of recognize that these are just people who are living with dementia. All care and support is provided by 24/7 on-site staff. We do not, because of the home ownership model, we do not meet the definition of any state licensed facility in the state of Wisconsin. What else can I tell you about it? Lots of different details. The entire village property is heavily landscaped for many reasons, but also for beautification, but also then helps with the ability to provide safe exploration. Next slide, please. So the entire village is really going through two core care concepts in all of its design that we're talking about. Living as usual. Eloy kind of called it normalization. We call it living as usual, which is where the name Levesu, living as usual, Levesu Village came from. That might sound like a small task to try to make all decisions through that lens. It is no small task. If you think about kind of traditional facility settings, they often are not able to really use that same lens or have not to date. The other core care concept is thoughtful, positive risk acceptance. All of us take risk on a daily basis, but for some reason, as we age, and as we age with dementia, there is oftentimes a feeling that we need to kind of bubble wrap people and keep them safe at all costs. But what is that cost? We believe that that cost is really the loss of personhood. So by allowing those with dementia to be able to take some risk, it really provides for a better living environment. Next slide. We have been very fortunate to have a group of people who have been working on a regular basis to make this project feasible and work. We were given a large donation and a matching fund through 2 donors to be able to purchase the land outright. So we do not have a loan. We have 79 acres. Our lead architect and our project manager are both donating their time. We have truly a community effort to make this village a reality here in Sheboygan County. Next slide. So what does it take to bring this from a vision that we had several years ago to reality? As you can imagine, there's been lots of steps. That land acquisition was really pivotal for many reasons. It was important that we pick the right land. We wanted to make sure that we were going to interface with the greater community. To do so, we needed to make sure that that land was in an opportunity where it was kind of a growing space rather than being out in the middle of nowhere. The next steps in terms of developing the land, all of those things was also really contingent on knowing which piece of land we were going to be building on. So we were excited to be able to accomplish that about almost a year ago. We then are working on our capital campaign. That's, as many of you probably know, many steps involved in that. What does that look like? What is the messaging related to the capital campaign? Because this is a new concept and a new idea in general, that obviously then has to be messaged in through that capital campaign as well. Project development. There's been so many pieces to the project development because this has not been done before. Every step, every decision is new. So we've been really working on cultivating the right team by bringing together different partners, working on the design through several different architects, working on the landscaping design, just many different pieces coming together from the project development side. And then operationally, what is this going to look like when we are actually up and running and we have those with dementia living in the village? Looking at it from a legal standpoint, looking at it from staffing, all of those different pieces. So that's kind of where the different steps that we've been working on to date and will continue to work on through the extent of the project. Next slide, please. So what is the price to have this type of living environment? For us, our project, complete project is about $13,500,000. That's in phases. So we are able to keep the project moving forward as we are raising funds to be able to complete the entire project. Because it is heavily upfront expenses with the infrastructure, the buildings need to be built, the road needs to be built. Those are the things that make it a village. Otherwise, it is truly just people living in their homes in a cornfield. So it is heavily upfront expenses. But the phases also will allow us to be able to do that in a reasonable fashion with cash flow as we move forward. Next slide, please. This is just really a saying that I like and I think has been really evident in our work. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. Thank you so much for your time, and I would be happy to answer questions at the end. And I am going to turn it over to Isaac.
Thank you, Mary. And thank you, Eloy. I've learned so much from both of your presentations. My name is Isaac Longobardi. I'm the director of the Moving Forward Nursing Home Quality Coalition, which is hosted by Leading Age and funded by another GIA member, the John A. Hartford Foundation. It's such an honor to be part of this conversation. Our work is really about SNFs, skilled nursing facilities. So in 2022, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine released a large report on all the challenges in skilled nursing care in the US. It was partly inspired by the tragedy of COVID in these and other residential care facilities, but looked a lot deeper. And at the back of the 600-page report, there are about 35 recommendations. And I pulled out one here, recommendation 1E, which was really focused on nursing home environments. As Eloy alluded to, nursing homes in the US in particular are really institutional. We have shared bedrooms, we have hallway bathrooms that feel more functional than they do relaxing, to say the least. We don't have great community spaces. We have incredibly long hallways with lack of light and limited seating. And we rarely have access to the outdoors, let alone the larger community. And we see that as a real flaw, and the NASM report did too. And they, brought attention to the need to transform nursing homes from these institutional models to smaller, more home-like environments, often called household models. So just highlighting this one recommendation, and I'll get to this more in the next slide, but I think what I want to say is in nursing home care, we're behind, right? Like what Livasu and what Eloy's group are doing are really setting a standard that nursing homes are far behind. And so I want to talk a little bit more today about what we're doing in the nursing home space, what's holding us up and getting to that next stage, and how we can probably work together to do that. So I'll say one more word about the Moving Forward Coalition, and then I'll ask to move to the next slide. The Moving Forward Coalition is taking these recommendations and trying to advance them into action through the engagement of a huge group of stakeholders and experts, residents, staff members in nursing homes, policymakers, to prioritize recommendations and advance them through policy and practice. And this was one of the recommendations we chose to focus on. So next slide, please. So this was a slide I ripped from another deck that we used when speaking to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, which provides mortgage insurance to nursing homes doing new constructions and renovations. And what we wanted to impress upon them is they needed to invest in nursing home transformations that were going to move beyond the institutional model and really guide us towards these quote unquote households, right? And so, you can see we live in a world on the top half that's really, it's all shared, it's long hallways, it's institutionals, but we want to move to a space that's organized around the household. And we have some amazing organizations that are leading that charge. The Greenhouse Project is one of them. Action Pack Design is another one. The Eden Alternative is a third. What I really see that's interesting as I listen to this discussion of dementia villages is that dementia villages are even out further to the right on this diagram, right? So as we're thinking about cultivating household models in the nursing home space, we also have to think about the communities that surround them and how they become part of the care and community environment. And so right now in nursing homes, we're really just thinking on the scale of the building itself and the patient care that happens in that building, but to really transform the care that we provide to not just deinstitutionalize, not just transform, but to get to that third step that Eloy spoke of normalizing, we need to build community around these spaces. So next slide, please. We have some research on greenhouses, in particular in the household models, that show that they do indeed provide more safety for residents, staff, and local communities. We know that in regards to COVID pandemic. They have better care quality and health outcomes for residents. And there is some indication that they may save some money for the government, which is often a big factor in the nursing home conversation. But when we go to folks at HUD to talk about these things and say, you guys should really incentivize this, or when we talk to colleagues at CMS to say the same, or to state agency staff, one of our barriers in particular is that a lot of this research is old, right? Like, the COVID study here is obviously more recent, but some of the broader research on care quality is dating back to 2016. It's got fairly small sample sizes because we just don't have that many household models. And it also doesn't really point to what are the factors within the household model. Is it just the private rooms, or is it, the structure of operations that has a less hierarchical staffing model that are contributing to these positive changes? So research is definitely something we're starting to have in the household model space, but not enough of. So next slide, please. So what I guess I really wanted to say about SNFs is that we live in a regulatory mindset. And what I heard Mary say is, because of the limits of that regulatory mindset, right, Livasu, it can't necessarily be licensed in the capacity of a SNF or even potentially an assisted living facility. And that's a real shame, right? I think our regulatory barriers are getting in the way of the innovation that we need to see. We have 15,000 nursing homes, most of which are institutional in their model. And, you know, we're going to need some of those, but we also need to push them forward. So, you know, as we've looked into the issue of household models in particular, we've seen that some of the biggest barriers to making these changes are state and federal building codes. We have a number of guidelines that restricts the way you can build a nursing home, and they often make it really hard to, you know, not have long hallways, to have seating in hallways, to, you know, construct access to the outdoors, to open up kitchens so that you can have folks eating together or participating in cooking. Likewise, we have a lot of restrictions in states on building at all. A lot of states don't allow new construction of nursing homes, and there's a you know, good reason for that historically. But as we think about these innovations, we may want to begin to question those policies. We also live in a system that has a financing model and an oversight process that is highly clinical. So in the 7 pillars of Be Advice, of the Be Advice paradigm, right? These things are only geared towards the health dimension. They have no way of thinking about surrounding, lifestyle, meaning, network, organization, or social inclusion. We don't know how to pay for those things. And when we go to oversee them and to ensure quality, we're really only looking at the health and safety related factors. So that often means that nursing homes are divorced from the community. They're cut off from that engagement as often as a safety precaution, and they're beholden to hospitals and health systems. So it gets really hard to imagine those socially inclusive frameworks in the nursing home context. And finally, we really live in a nursing home world that does policy making at the pace of research. If you don't have the R01 study, it's really hard to take the next step on innovation. But, you know, we know with good common sense that the quality of life improvements in something like a household model, let alone a dementia village, is night and day. So, you know, I think if there are any policymakers on here, I'd say, you know, you got to go with your gut a little bit on this. You know, research is great, and we should obviously check our quality as we go. But some of these things are more fundamental and more human than that. So I think, you know, what the Moving Forward Coalition hopes to do is to start to push ourselves in the skilled nursing facility space to really break through some of these barriers, which are often, yes, legal and regulatory, but then also conceptual, right? We've built a bit of a conceptual cage around ourselves. So, you know, we're super excited about household models, but I'm taking notes here and excited to see the process of nursing homes start to think about how do we take that household model and then build it into larger communities? How do we make nursing homes not just less institutional, but real communities of social inclusion and engagement? So thanks to Eloy and Mary for sharing that wonderful wisdom with me and with our community. Next slide, please. I'll just wrap up to say that you can check out our website there. We really hope you all come and join the coalition to be part of these conversations in the skilled nursing facility space. And with that, I'm really excited to get to this conversation and question and answer. So Lindsay, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Isaac. Thank you, Eloy. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Helen. If everyone could come back on camera now, it is time for the discussion portion of our program. So please, if you're in the audience right now and you have questions, please type them into the Q&A, because otherwise I will just monopolize all of our time, because I have so many questions, because these models are so inspiring. So let's talk about the cost. I'd love to hear from both Eloy and Mary about how the financing works. And I know that, you know, in the Netherlands, it's a very different kind of system that you have, but if you both could speak to, you know, what is the cost to the resident? How are you financing the care that's being delivered? And what are the costs around operating these models, and how are those paid for? So Eloy, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you. Of course, it's all about the money in the end, but we should start maybe with what's the impact of the model. So if you live in the Netherlands and you can only live at the Hogewijk if you meet certain criteria, you need severe dementia, etc. So the costs vary from, and maybe this is a shocking news, around $200, 175 euro per month for the individual, up to 2,500 euro. And that depends on your income and assets. So this type of care in the Netherlands, in the Hogewijk, is accessible for everybody because everybody in the Netherlands has a state pension that's much higher. So if you're really poor, you pay the minimum amount of 175 euro, let's say $200. And if you're really rich, you are lucky because you pay the max amount of 2,500, or you pay something in between. I think the average personal payment residents do back to the state, so not to the Hogewijk, but to the state, is around, but it's a guess, around $1,000. But that's not the way the Hogewijk is financed. So the Hogewijk is financed out of our national tax-based system, so it's a social system. So the Hogewijk is paid out of our national insurance, and those costs vary, but are around the 90 to 100,000 euro per place per year. So that's what the costs are. And then your next question should be, what do we have to deliver for that? So included is housing, all care, all staffing, all doctors, so there are not external doctors involved. All doctors are employed by us. Food, beverage, so it's an all-inclusive budget. So that's what we have to provide. And this budget is similar to all the other 2,000 nursing homes we have in the Netherlands. So then I mentioned this because we still have also some traditional nursing homes who provide traditional care, institutional care, with the same amount of money. And they say we cannot do a village model, but they can if they change their business model, their mentality, their vision. Up to Mary.
So we are a nonprofit, and we have made that decision thoughtfully. We have made the decision based on that to then capital campaign for all infrastructure costs. So we decided that our community should be able to support having this in our community. We're a very generous community, and we hope to be able to draw from a wider range as well, because this will be the first of its kind in the United States. So somebody needs to be first, somebody needs to pilot the idea and the concept. So we're willing to take that on, and felt that a capital campaign to provide the infrastructure was the right way to go for that financing. We have, loan contingencies, things like that in place. They're ready to kind of go if we need to. Care and support fees for the homeowners will be able to keep operations just like traditional facilities, but with, as Eloy said, providing so much more than traditional facilities with that same type of dollar amounts of the monthly fees.
So they're privately paying. Is that correct?
Correct. They will privately pay. We do have, again, being a nonprofit, we'll have a foundation. Wisconsin has a different Medicaid program. We have been told that family care will pay for care and support like they do in traditional facilities. So we have some of those additional long-term care insurance would likely pay. So there are other funding options as well.
And the budget that you presented, does that include the cost of the construction, right? Because you said the houses are individually owned?
Correct. Our houses are individually owned. Mm-hmm.
So does that include the construction, or does the...
No, that's the 13 million is the infrastructure cost. Okay. So that is the, the road, the buildings of the village center, all of those things, but not of the actual homes. And the home ownership is really an important feature, because one of the things we heard is people felt like when they went to traditional care, they kind of turned their loved one over and they kind of became the outsider. Well, what better way to change that messaging and that philosophy is to give them ownership.
So how do people become, let's say, prospective buyers? And Eloy, how do people end up living in the Hoogevik?
Mary first? Mary first?
Sure. I mean, I didn't say this before, but and Helen, I think, mentioned it a tiny bit, but we actually, the three co-founders, we actually went to see the Hoogevik and have spent a lot of time training both virtually and in person with Eloy and his team. So, their model is different just again, because of the whole, payer source in their country. It's a very different model. So we anticipate, just like traditional facilities, we will need to do some marketing to be able to explain to people what this new concept is all about. We are not anticipating on having any issues with, census or with people moving in, because it is something that's so unique. And I think it's something that people are looking forward to and are going to seek. But they will have to understand the philosophy of the village, the differences between what it offers versus what a traditional facility offers, because it won't be for everybody. So I think a strong messaging marketing will be part of how we are able to have homeowners move.
And you're completely right, Mary, that the financial models differ completely, but we are completely aligned in vision and how we look at people living with dementia. So it's very good that there are different models, financial models, but also maybe different look and feels developed worldwide. And so not only nursing home care, what we do, maybe also other types of care, memory care. So that's great. So if you want to live in the Hoogevik, you first need to live in the Netherlands and be a Dutch citizen. And the policy in the Netherlands, like in many countries, is stay at home as long as possible. So we can do and we can deliver a lot of care and support in people's homes in the Netherlands. The Netherlands is not that big, so that's also maybe logistically a little bit easier. So you can even get almost the same care and support you get in a nursing home at home nowadays. But if that is not the best place anymore, if it's too stressful, too much a burden for the family caregivers, for everybody, if you cannot stay at home, an independent committee will assess your personal situation, your social situation, your housing situation, and your clinical situation. And they can give you the permission to go to one of the 2,000 nursing homes we have in the Netherlands. They all provide skilled nursing, so it's not memory care, it's not assisted living or memory care, it's skilled nursing. And if you meet the criteria, if you have that permit, the ticket, you can come to the Hoogevik. It's your personal choice to move to one of the 2,000, so you can come here. We will explain you how it works, and also the risks of living here. And I really like your approach, Mary, how you challenge that, because we have to redefine the risks of normal daily life. And so we explain the concept. And if you like that, you can come on the waiting list. We have 4 waiting lists because we work with 4 different lifestyles: urban, traditional, cosmopolitan, and formal. And so if there's a place available in your lifestyle preference, then you can move in. And then all the costs of your stay are covered by our national health insurance.
So let's stay on that topic of risk. How do you address any potential liability issues, right? Because you are balancing, the need for freedom and independence with the need for safety, right? So I'm curious how you deal with behaviors like wandering if the village is open to the general public. How do you deal with those kinds of strategies, and how do you deal with some of the liability issues, just given the fact that the US is somewhat of a litigious society?
I'm very curious first how you do that in the existing nursing homes. And so changing the paradigm a little bit. Are the existing nursing homes so safe? I think they are very dangerous, very risky, because you sit on your butt all day, which is very unhealthy. You can fall over everything what's there in the corridors. So so when you do something new, you get all kind of questions about the risks of a fountain, which is outside here. And so we have to explain that, and like Mary also does, there are maybe risks of a normal daily life, and that's the same for people with dementia. So why should nothing happen in your new place where you live? So we must try to frame it completely different.
Mm.
And of course, it's difficult to prove that we are equally risky as every other place in the Netherlands, and maybe a little bit safer because there's a lot of support around. But we have to reframe this. And so it's very good to walk and stroll around. And that's part of normal life. And people fall, and we will never promise that nothing will happen. I can guarantee you that things happen. But I can also guarantee you that people with dementia are not stupid. So they will not jump into a fountain and try to commit suicide. They will not eat a kilo of a poisoning plant. They will not stab everybody. People with dementia are people. And if the surrounding and the place where they live is normal, people act normal. And also people with dementia will act normal. They are just human beings with a brain issue.
Thank you. Mary.
I completely agree with everything Eloy said. I think we do need to change the shift in the way we think about these things. And that's all about our thoughtful risk acceptance. And that's why it's not going to be for everybody, because some people still prefer the bubble wrap method. Yeah. And that's personal decision, right? To want to live in Levesu Village, families and care partners are going to need to understand it's a different environment. I would also challenge it a little bit to think about if you're in your own home and you're living in the middle of every community, which is where many people with dementia are currently living, right, are in their own homes. We actually are going to provide a better safety, if that is one of your concerns, a safety net, because it is an environment designed for people with dementia. It's not the old homes that people are currently living in, right? So I think, again, it's a shift in how we think about things. And yes, we'll have to be smart in how we are, attorneys will have to be involved in all those lovely things that we have to deal with in the United States. But it will be different from the mindset right from the beginning, because people will have to understand the philosophy to want to live here.
And I can guarantee you, Mary, that most people want to live in your place. And people want to live in the home because of the freedom, the possibility to walk outside, the fresh air, the risks of daily life. So mainly researchers, lawmakers, they focus, public journalists, they focus on things that can happen, or because you're different. But they should focus on the existing institutions that are very dangerous places to live, where you die, where you sit, where you only watch television. So that should be the focus first, and then see what you can get. And then you can maybe, this is the way we live, this society where you have to prove everything, then you can measure and you see that there are no more fallings and that much higher quality of life is there.
Are there any services that you're not able to provide? Any needs that you can't address? So for example, one participant asked about hospice care. Will you provide hospice on site, or will a person need to go somewhere else or bring that in separately? Similar question about mobility needs.
So we are anticipating through Life's End, and that would be through the support of bringing in outside agencies for hospice. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Mobility, it is designed for older adults. So it is will be a walkable village. There will be in-village transportation options as well. Again, through life's end is really the goal. Traditional thinking here in the United States in terms of how we provide care currently is we expect people to move, right? You move in here, and then you need this level of care, and you move here, and then you need this level of care, and you have to move, and then you need this. And we're asking that of the person who has the hardest time adjusting to change is the person with dementia. And they oftentimes are required to move multiple times. So one of the goals of Levesu Village is to not require people to have to move, but be able to adapt the environment to meet their needs.
So, and at Hogewijk, people stay until end of life. So everybody, 99% of the people that move in, they also die here in their own room with the support of their care team that is supporting them already during the whole stay, and our professional medical team that is on site. So I never frame it like that, but you can look at the Hogewijk as a whole hospice, because but first we focus on quality of life and enjoy life, and then a comfortable death. So what we don't recognize, what you see often in nursing homes, that people stay for a long time in bed, bedridden residents. So the average stay in bed when people die is 4 days. Has to do with the whole model, has to do with our view on medical support in the last few days, has nothing to do with euthanasia. It's not euthanasia, but it's providing comfort care in your own room. So, and that's how the Hogewijk is seen. And we have some interest from 2 companies in the US who provide nowadays hospice care. That's only for the last 6 months, but they want to extend their services. They want to offer a longer stay and also provide good care in the last phase of life. And that's very good, because dying is a part of normal daily life, and die with comfort and peace.
Do you all think that this is a model that can be implemented in an existing community? Isaac, you talked about some of the challenges with our existing skilled nursing facilities. Is this really something that we need to build from the ground up, or do you think that certain spaces can be adapted?
Well, I think the challenge when we think about financing and some of those, Eloy, you spoke about sort of what risks we're willing to accept in the US. Nursing homes are built into the healthcare system, right? We are not a community model. We are a healthcare model. We are mini hospitals effectively. And so we are paid that way, and we are expected to act that way. And we accept the risks that the healthcare system is willing to accept, not the risks that communities are willing to accept. So I think, whether nursing homes are the place where you would start, I'm not sure. Probably where we need to go is to kind of think about, we see these continuums of care where you have nursing homes within a spectrum. That's probably the communities that can be the first blueprint in the US, or the second after Levesu, right? And I think we look at something like Tomé Rivertown, also in the upper Midwest, or I guess central Midwest. They're starting to think creatively about how can we patch these different services together and create a real continuum in a community. So I think that's probably where we need to think. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from nursing homes, and nursing homes will need to be a part of it, but standalones will be difficult for that reason.
If I can just add, we would love to see, and Isaac, I very much agree with what you're saying too. We envision actually that as communities grow throughout the United States and are adding different infrastructure, that just like we have community libraries, we have community fire stations, we should have community dementia villages, because we all know that the cures aren't coming anytime soon. The population is growing, and they do truly have different needs. So we'd love to see, yes, we're doing it from the ground up. We're doing it as a nonprofit. There's lots of different models that it could look like. But I don't think people should be scared to go for it. Somebody has to take some challenge and has to be willing to continue to provide alternative options and keep the whole movement moving forward.
Well, go ahead. Yes.
If I may add, I think you can implement the all the aspects of the whole model, maybe accept the built environment into every traditional institutional building. It's about your vision, your approach, how you look at people, your holistic view, and that can be done in every terrible building, and you can adapt. And maybe it's not ideal, but that's also how we started, and you can learn from that. So I would not discourage people, say, oh, you need 13 million or so. No, you can start tomorrow without any money.
Thank you so much. We are at the end of our hour. I think this webinar went by the fastest of any, and we have a record number of questions and comments. And so this, I'm hoping, will be the first of multiple conversations on this topic, because I think it is so important and inspiring. Thank you all for joining today. Thank you to our panelists, Helen, Eloy, Mary, and Isaac, for sharing your expertise with us. As a reminder, we will be making today's presentation available to anyone who wishes to view it later. We've gotten some requests in the chat for additional literature on this topic, and so whatever we receive, we will post. And please watch for a program survey that will give you the opportunity to provide some feedback on the program today. We use it to improve. And thank you all for joining us. Please be well.
So Lindsay, can I add something? I see some of the questions. If you go to our website, you can find a lot of information on the articles we posted, also research articles. So
thank you so much. And we will link to that as well.
bethecareconcept.com. That's the right website.
Okay.